Wet was released in 2009, published by Bethesda and developed by Behaviour Interactive, known then as Artificial Mind and Movement Incorporated, which was wisely abbreviated to A2M for being a mouthful, before changing its name to Behaviour Interactive in 2010 for reasons. Speaking of mouthful. Anyway, the game is a third-person hack-and-slash shooter, where you control Ruby Malone, a freelance problem fixer specialising in the shady dealings of the criminal underworld. It's explained via text in the opening level that wet derives from the term wet work, a euphemism for hands literally wet with blood. Taking influence from films and games both visually and technically, Wet takes a Tarantino-style plot of revenge and excessive violence, combines it with the run-and-gun parkouring of Uncharted, and adds a whole heap of slow-motion bullet time from Max Payne to provide what feels like an interactive action B-movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, although that's no excuse for the state of some of these PS2-looking character models. This B-movie theme runs throughout the entirety of the game, most visibly via the constant overlaid film grain effect, as well as the old-fashioned drive-in style loading screens, which personally were just there purely for excessive quirkiness.
It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
The film grain effect can be turned off though if it gets too annoying, but considering how short the game actually is to play, it never became too much of a bother for me. Speaking of how short a full playthrough can take, I managed to finish the 13 chapters that the game offers in about 4 or 5 hours, but a player with actual skill could probably knock an hour or so off that. In terms of gameplay, you have a fixed central reticle, so no zooming in or out for precision aiming. Bullet time is automatically activated by shooting whilst in the middle of performing one of a variety of acrobatic actions, with normal speed resuming once the action you're performing is completed. The main actions consist of jumping, sliding and wall running, but these can be played around with to find new moves, such as the Angel Dive where you simply run up a wall and Ruby backflips off. This does make you feel pretty badass, with my personal favourites being the slow-mo wall run over chasms while simultaneously headshotting assholes that want you dead, having Ruby shoot in front and behind her during a knee slide, and finally, the awesome ladder slide Ruby does where she slides backwards down towards the ground while shooting. Now that girl has some powerful legs. These moves can be chained together to provide a higher point score. Now what's the use of a higher point score, I hear you ask? Well, these points basically act as the currency in the game, allowing you to upgrade certain skills as well as unlocking new ones as you play, leading to you becoming more capable with a wider arsenal as the enemy difficulty rises too. An effective system overall. The points pricing seemed fair, and with another playthrough I'm pretty confident I could upgrade her completely. You can only access the upgrade screen at certain points however, which we'll get onto later. Stringing together moves creates a points multiplier which affects your score, but also determines the speed at which your health is regenerated, causing you to actually engage in the gunfights, even at critical levels, in order to increase your multiplier and get back some precious life bars, rather than camping in the corner until your health bar is back to full. At first this annoyed me, but looking back, what's not to like about a feature that encourages you to get stuck in and think smarter about your approach in combat? You also find alcohol crates dotted around the level which fully restore Ruby's health. Why alcohol? Because it's cool, I guess, I don't know. Now, in terms of weaponry, there isn't a lot of variety of what you have available to you. Pistols, shotguns, SMGs and crossbows make up the entire weapon roster, and can be easily selected using the D-pad. Pistols have unlimited ammo, whilst the others have a set amount of ammo that can be upgraded through the point system, along with shot damage and fire rate. Extra ammo can be found throughout levels by destroying crates. You acquire weapons intermittently throughout the story, with a text pop-up saying 3 months earlier and taking you back to Ruby's base to let you practice with the new weapon before bringing you back to the present day to continue the story. A much better way of introducing these weapons than having her literally go back to her base in the present time for no reason. As well as the 4 types of firearms, you have a sword, the only melee weapon in the game, and you get it right from the beginning, along with your pistols. This can also be upgraded as the game progresses. You can use it to smash open crates and find ammo and extra skill points. The game incorporates split targeting, which can seem complicated at first but becomes quick to adjust to. Essentially the way it works is that because every firearm is dual wielded, the red circle indicates where Ruby is auto shooting, while you are free to decide where to manual shoot with the other hand. An upgrade is available where you can unlock control of both guns, one with the left stick and one with the right, but I never felt the need to do this as the way the targeting system is implemented works pretty well. Now, having looked at the mechanics, let's delve into the main plot. Now warning, there are spoilers ahead, so if you fancy trying this out for yourself and don't want anything ruined, I suggest leaving now. So, for those of you left, you play as the aforementioned Ruby Malone, who does odd jobs that aren't necessarily legal. The first 2 chapters consist of chasing down a man named Simmons and collecting his briefcase for your client. The first chapter introduces the arena combat gameplay and collectibles. The arena combat consists of a small fighting area, where you have to close off access points for more enemies, and eliminating those that are left over once all the access points are closed. You know how many access points are left through the skull icon in the corner. It's only after these sections and the ends of chapters that you can access the upgrade shop, so you'll want to take advantage of the multipliers around the map. The collectibles are those symbol clashing monkey toys you've all seen before. The "Get Ready for Monkey Business" slogan and the imagery at the start menu were the only tenuous links I could find. Because what else would you collect in this game other than monkeys? Clearly the developers didn't know either. It was in this first level with a certain wagon sequence that I began to worry about how random and ineffectual some of this game was going to be. You're going along following the linear level layout, when suddenly you have a quick time event where a car comes hurtling towards you, and after 3 shots from your pistols, the car explodes in slow motion and you dive over the top of it, and then just carry on like nothing happened. Random moments define this game. Oh, and if you don't like quick time events, then this definitely isn't the game for you. Anyway, after another arena battle, you get to the second mission where the gameplay is changed to a road chase sequence where you can only shoot and occasionally have to perform quick time events to move on to the next set piece. Sure, some of it looks cool and feels cool in the moment, but none of it has a lasting effect. I have a specific example that we'll come to later. After all the 5 minutes of gameplay that this mission has to offer, you take the case and dispatch the broken-legged Simmons with the most flammable road and car I've ever seen. I mean, look, there's not even any petrol there to light or anything.
You fucking bitch!
You should have stopped it. I can't feel my legs.
Here we meet Trevor Ackers in a cutscene with 2 amazing voice performances. One for how stereotypical it is,
My father's enemies, my enemies, want him dead.
and the other for how surprised I was at the type of voice that character had. I'm talking about you, Dr. Afro.
This heart will save your father's life, Mr. Ackers. He wouldn't survive the night without it.
It's here that we get the opening credits, and the bombshell that the legendary Malcolm McDowell and Alan Cumming both lended their voices to this obscure game. Pretty awesome news and something that actually got me excited to continue playing, so credit to the casting for that. Alongside Eliza Dushku, they all provide some really great performances that actually did encourage my engagement with the story. After what is essentially a practice level, we're introduced to the Collector and Tarantula, both appearing to be lackeys for William Ackers, who wants you to go and retrieve his son. It's at this point you realise how short this game is going to be, having played for around 35 to 40 minutes and being a quarter of the way through already.
You saved my life. Now I need you to save his. And I'll make it undeniably worth your while.
We then meet some forgettable side characters before we go to Hong Kong, where during the mission we get our first taste of Rage Mode. Every instance of Rage Mode works the same. After a guy runs at her and she shoots him point blank in the face, you get blood on your face and the whole environment shifts to shades of red and black and white. Essentially, you just need to make it through the linear path to the side and try to rack up as many chain kills as possible. Enemies seem easier in this mode, and the more chain kills you get, the higher your points reward. These sections are recurring throughout the story, and much like the combat arenas, they provide a nice way to break up the visual monotony with a fresh new aesthetic, even if the gameplay stays the same. The rest of the chapter involves an enjoyable lift shaft, a wave survival segment in the Thunderdome ripped straight from Mad Max 3, and a turret gun section which shows off the impressive destruction engine, where pretty much most of the environment can be blown to smithereens. You also get the first mini-boss fight, and the last of any real significance, in the form of Rat Boy, which also leads to an actually funny cutscene.
You a fucking bitch! Who the fuck are you?
I need some information.
Yeah? Well, I need a new hand, so fuck off!
After traversing some rooftops and another rage mode, you apprehend Ackers and return him to his dad. But holy double cross, it's not his dad at all, and Ackers is decapitated. Now who could have seen that coming? Me. I saw it coming. Also, look at the Dr. Evil level of not finishing off your enemy when you have the chance. Shoot her in the head now. Literally just shoot her in the face. You're point blank. Shoot her now. But no. He leaves it to the Collector, who is put off after 4 lackluster button prompts, and after saying,
"We'll meet again someday. Auf Wiedersehen."
fucks off out the window. Oh, and by the way, you don't actually meet him again, so I hope that fight satisfied you. Oh yeah, then she passes out. If only Malcolm McDowell had stayed to watch, he could have finished her off right there. But no. Anyway, she wakes up safe and sound with European contact Milo, who has an Irish accent, so he's definitely Irish.
Christ. It's good to see your reflexes haven't suffered. You may not remember it, but you're alive because of it. I was able to get you patched up, but you're gonna hurt for a while.
Oh, never mind then.
Are you out of your mind?
This is also the cutscene that has the B-movie goodness of overlapping dialogue.
The British Museum, Townsley Wing. She said she
What
wanted
kind
to
of
trade.
trade?
She didn't say.
Irish-Scottish Milo points you to Kafka, who wants a book in return for her help. So you go to try and retrieve it from a plane, which then explodes, and then you have to avoid wreckage falling from the sky until you catch up with it. This is actually one of my favourite levels, even if it isn't the most original. But that's what games are about, right? Fun. Well, this fun lasts all of 2 minutes and 10 seconds of actual gameplay. That's right, I actually counted. Oh, there's also this button prompt after that, so that's fun too. Because God, I love pressing Y. Anyway, her information essentially leads to telling you that his estate is accessible via this route. Cue the most frustrating mission in the entire game. It's not even like it's that hard, I just could not stop dying. Seriously, look at this. All these deaths are from the same stupid mission. You so much as sneeze and she dies. I hated it. Apparently we're still meant to think McDowell was his dad, as we meet the real William Ackers here, and it's supposed to be a shock. But, I mean, if you look in the booklet, you can see it's not him, so that was a bit short-sighted.
Who the fuck hired
Ruby.
Ruby then escapes the island and has a bit of a tantrum about the fact that she was set up. At this point, she just seems kind of dumb. Like, shouldn't you check the credentials of whoever's hiring you in your line of work? Just by describing him, Milo knows it's a guy called Rupert Pelham. You didn't think to ask earlier on the off chance it wasn't who you thought it was?
Who?
Rupert Pelham. He heads up the designer drug market in Asia.
The next level is your standard fare leading up to a mini boss fight. Now the hardest part of this though was the section on top of a wooden tower. I had no idea where to go, and after literally 8 minutes of running around the same platform and jumping off and dying, I worked out that you had to slide underneath this rail and hang on. Something that's never used in this way before or after in the game. Next chapter leads us to Hong Kong and one of my favourite mistimed QTE results. That's awesome. After the combat arena segment, you have to fight the masseuse from Dine of the Day. The only problem here being, you can't tell if you're actually doing damage to her, leading to me not knowing whether I'm actually meant to fight her or find a different route out of the room. It turns out you are just meant to shoot her and eventually she dies. Your forgettable friend's brother gets kidnapped, so you save him, but he turns on you, and it's never explained why other than this throwaway line by Malcolm McDowell.
Never underestimate the power of feeling good.
This brings us to one of my favourite things in the game. In the menu screen you see a guy called the Torturer, so you think he's going to be a big player, no pun intended. Well, you're introduced to him in this scene. Ruby is tied up and lets Sorrel, McDowell's English henchman, slap her around a bit, but as soon as he leaves and she's left with the midget, she's like, fuck this shit, and immediately escapes and kills him, albeit in amazing fashion.
How do you want it, motherfucker? It's gonna be a long fucking night.
This chapter is literally just this room you start in and a rage mode segment, taking about 5 to 10 minutes altogether. The shortest of all the chapters where you actually get to run around as Ruby. Sorrel escapes, and while still in rage mode you enter a pursuit much like chapter 2. Now this was a pretty awesome surprise and it feels like you're inside the video for Go With The Flow by Queens of Stone Age. Again, it takes me back to my point about the game barely giving you any time in these fun scenarios, with the gameplay for this section being only around 3 minutes, far too short. This brings me back to what I said earlier about moments not having a lasting impact. There's a whole set piece here where she's on the back of a truck and motorbikes are flying all over and just missing her, and she wall runs between 2 vans, and it should feel epic. Like being part of the highway chase from Matrix Reloaded. Yet everything feels like it has no impact, and it just happens. One of my most memorable gaming moments is the locomotion chapter of Uncharted 2, where a train carriage is careening out of control, about to smash Nathan Drake, but just as it's about to hit, the tunnel comes to his aid in the nick of time and saves him. That was epic and memorable. Something this game aims at but never manages to achieve. Anyway, you get to the end of the stage and kill everyone and get a tip to visit London next.
London! They're going to London!
The penultimate chapter sees Ruby fighting her way through a fishing dock. They introduce a new enemy type here who uses a machete and a metal face mask, and it took me about half the level to realise you're supposed to use a sword to kill them much faster than wasting all your bullets, which I was doing before that. This is about the only time you ever actually really need to change up your game plan, as everyone else will eventually just go down as long as you keep shooting. This level packs everything into it, with multiple combat arenas, environmental traversal, rage mode, and a final chase which was actually pretty fun. The good thing about this level, as opposed to my hated Acker's Island level, is that if you fell, you could just swim back to the pier, rather than dying over and over again and having the level reload.
You're fucking mad! You're mad!
No, I'm fucking pissed. And I want answers.
Once Sorrel is caught, he gives up his information, and his leg is cut off, leaving him to die in the burning dockyard. This brings us to the final epic showdown. The past few hours have been leading up to this. Unfortunately, the best thing about this whole sequence is this line from Malcolm.
Thought we had something special.
You're like a turd in a punch bowl, Ruby. Take her now. But
Tarantula and Pelham are nice enough to split up, and Ruby leads her out into a nice looking boss fight area.
Here we go.
Next thing you know, she's behind her, even though they were just face to face. Also, why don't either of them just shoot each other straight away? Who made it sword rules only? Anyway, they have a slow fight, and eventually Ruby just snaps her neck. Also, the geographical layout here is confusing. In the long shot, you can see that they're well outside in a courtyard, but once Tarantula is dealt with, suddenly Ruby is transported to the front door and Tarantula has disappeared. How the hell did Ruby get there all of a sudden, and where's Tarantula gone? Anyway, Pelham puts in the least amount of effort into killing Ruby before throwing his gun away in defeat.
Bummer.
And then,
For you.
he's dead in 3 button prompts. What a fantastic main antagonist boss fight.
money too? Here. Take it. Fuck you.
No. Fuck you.
Ruby walks away into the night with his money, as her and the real Ackers say they aren't enemies, but they aren't
We
friends.
are not enemies. But we are not friends.
Yeah. Got it.
Good for them. So, that's it. All's well that ends well. Oh yeah, and Tarantula's still alive. Clearly, they were setting up for a sequel, and one was actually announced in 2010. But not long after the sequel was cancelled, and Bethesda even said that if there was one, they wouldn't be publishing it. The reasons why were never explained, but a combination of the game being too niche, a lack of satisfactory sales, and a loss of a well-known publisher certainly wouldn't have helped. After completing the game, you unlock Challenge Mode, which only serves the purpose of more achievements, as does collecting the monkeys. Simply by just playing through the story, you unlock all the extra content, which includes the songs, most of which are enjoyable but very samey, the character bios, and the level concept art, which are actually pretty cool. I know I may have ragged on it, but I did have fun with Wet, and ultimately, I would recommend it. The game is a decade old this year, so you should be able to pick it up cheap. I got my copy for a grand total of £1, and that was a few years ago. In summary, all of the cool, cheesy B-movie qualities come together to form a game that isn't breaking any new ground, but if you have an afternoon to kill and a good sense of humour, you can definitely do much worse than checking this game out.
Should have stopped it. I can't feel my legs.